we have determined at ARC, this happened at least in part because I read analysis 20 years ago that, and I think they were Lomberg's analysis, that showed that if you make poor people rich, they pollute less. And I thought, oh my God, that's the magic key. It's like you can solve the problem of poverty, abject poverty, not relative poverty, the devastating form of life-threatening poverty, opportunity-destroying, stunting poverty, and you can solve the environmental problem at the same time. Like, why wouldn't you do that? That's such an opportunity.
We should.
Right. So then when we aggregated together ARC, one of our foundational platforms, this intermingling of energy and environment was, well, we need to change we certainly need to change the scarcity narrative, the Malthusian narrative. We're not going to run out, folks. There aren't too many people on the planet. There isn't finite resources in the way we conceptualize them, and way we conceptualize that because resource itself is a fungible concept. I think the idea of natural resource is essentially a Malthusian and Marxist idea at its core, right? Natural resource, like what? Air, maybe air, because you can just breathe it. You still have to expend the energy, right? Clean water? No, that's not natural. That takes a lot of work, a lot. Okay, so
so that's this thought that, and I've been in 60 countries in the world. I've been lucky into them. The worst environments in the world, the physical environment, where the worst soil, the worst water, polluted water, local air is where it's poor. Every time.
Well, that's also where people kill and eat all the animals when they starve, right? And you only have to do that once.
And
there aren't any animals.
Correct.
Right.
So your local resources can have limits, right?
Yeah.
And gathering of wood, for example, deforestation can have limits. In Nepal now, where we take in our second film, Switch On, they've had to restrict gathering of wood. But a lot of people can only cook with biomass, and this is where LPG is so critical to them, and induction cooktops, because the forests are literally being harvested.
Right.
And uncontrollably.
Right. So another thing to point out is that natural gas is an excellent substitute for deforestation.
Oh, completely.
Right.
Saves the forest.
So okay.
And oil saved the whales. We used to use whale oil to light our homes and for other uses. And then along comes this natural thing, and it was kerosene that came out of oil initially, and we put that in lanterns, and boy, it burned, and it wasn't explosive like refined gasolines are another thing. So there's this wonderful technological transition that happens with energy systems where we keep getting denser, cleaner, and ironically, more reliable, and in many ways more affordable, especially if you adjust for the time value of money.
Right.
That's why we can do so much work with it. Now, what prevents that? You keep going back saying, damn it, Scott. Why are we doing this?
It's so perplexing to me.
Yeah.
Because, see, I've tried to trace it back. Okay. And a lot of this comes out of the scares, the environmental scares of the 1960s, combined with the biologists' insistence that Malthusian realities dominate the world. And the environmental concerns of the 1960s had some grounding, but they were the kind of concerns that would only emerge in a rich country. So that's the first thing we might want to notice that. When Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, the fact that our industrial processes were creating a certain degree of havoc in some specified ecosystems was the sort of thing that wealthy people could afford to worry about, and then did. And then Paul Ehrlich and the Club of Rome, those people, man, they got a lot of sins on their conscience. And their notion was overpopulation in a world defined by finitude, right? And that's had I can't think of a doctrine that's done more harm than that. Maybe the communist doctrine, possibly.
Marxist.
Possibly that. But apart from that notion of intrinsic Malthusian scarcity. Now, there's a great story about that, right? Because Paul Ehrlich, who is the master biologist of the Malthusian nightmare. So the Malthusian nightmare is the idea that human beings are best modeled as mold in a petri dish. we'll multiply uncontrollably and rapaciously until we devour all of the biological substrate, and then we'll all cataclysmically starve.
Right.
It's like, no, there's nothing about that that's right in the human situation if things are mastered properly, because we can switch the substrate. So, and that's actually what, that's why we have a cortex, right? I mean, our niche is substrate switching. That's what we have evolved to do.
Let me support that for a second. Hold that thought for a second. The substrate switching that's going on right now with wealth. So if you look at, and there's reasons this, I'm going to preface it, some of this might not be good in terms of outcome, but here's what's happening. So I'm going to describe it. Fertility rates against wealth.
Right.
If you look at that, highest fertility rates down to the lowest, wealth going this way. The wealthiest countries over here, and our fertility rates are below replacement of 2.1.
Yep.
The poorer you are, the higher your fertility rates. Right, because you need kids for one thing to do the basic agrarian kinds of things, and they die of a tooth infection or diarrhea. It's morally awful in a modern world, so-called. But it isn't fertility rates driving wealth. It's wealth pulling down the fertility rates. And part of the reason that's happening is, you just described it, we have a brain.
Yep.
People are saying we choose not to have as many kids. Morally, religiously, we could talk about that, and you'll be better than me, but this is just what's happening. So the fertility rates in almost every country in the world have been plummeting the last 30 years, except Africa.
So the point you're making is that
population in 50 years, and here comes the last 50. 50 megawatt hours, $50,000. In 2075, most demographers agree now, given the current trends in fertility rates plummeting, population in this world will peak.
Right.
And it won't plateau, Jordan.
It
plummets. It plummets.
Which may be the next problem we really have to face.
We're going to be going, whoa, this has got a 2075. My kids will still be alive. And so why am I not concerned about resources? Well, I kind of believe that's coming, and there may be a human super cycle. Who knows? We may choose to have more kids and not go extinct. I think we're going to choose to have kids, personally. You know,
I think so too.
But I don't think we can provide enough energy for 50 years to get everybody 50 megawatt hours and 50 grand. 50, 50, 50. We can do that. And this is what Toby Rice and I have started, the Energy Core, CORPS, to try to do that very thing, is to not get mud huts and light bulbs, to literally help everybody's doing great work in this area, lift the world into prosperity. Let's go. What's stopping that?